trying to get range to the target, we have a few different methods. The first and foremost is going to be a good laser rangefinder. And with a good laser rangefinder, like the SIG Kilo 600, I think, or the SIG 1000s, whatever they are, I'm a big fan of the Vortex Fury HD 5000s. These things are awesome. Rangefinder, applied ballistics, Bluetooth to your Kestrel, a bunch of other stuff, angle, all kinds of cool stuff, but super clear, great binos, great focus, everything in between. These are my go-to for ranging, and for the price point, they're awesome. I've compared these to the SIGs, and I've compared them to the Vectronics Vector 21 Bravo, and they're always plus or minus 1 to 3 yards out to the mile that I've tested them out on still target. So they're awesome. They have a scanning feature, so if you can't really see the target, you can kind of scan, say, the crest of a hill, and if you got a target and you're reading 800, 800, 800, 642, 800, 800, 642, then you know your target's probably at 642. So cool little feature. That's going to be your primary method for getting range to target nowadays. But in lieu of a rangefinder, or if your batteries die, or you forget them, or you run them over with your truck or whatever, there's a few other methods. So you got your football field method, and that's as simple as saying there's a target there. How many football fields would I put between me and that target? Because we all probably grew up watching football. What we forget sometimes is if we account for the end zone, that's an additional bit of space that could be misconstrued. So we're essentially going to go, I think 3 football fields would fit between me and that target. It's roughly 300 yards. Then we can look at appearance of objects. We just did this out at Echo Valley a few weeks ago, and we were like, how far away is that big rock from here across the river? And some people were like 1,200, 600, 800. And I looked at it and I thought, well, I can see some of the definition on the leaves of the trees around it. So I'm going to go with 780. And I think it ended up being like 808 or 820 or something like that. But that's just an example of using appearance of objects. I could see the definition of leaves at a certain distance, so I knew that it couldn't be much further beyond that. Bracketing is another one where maybe you know the range to this terrain feature. This hill you might know is 600, and you know the range to that hill is 800, and you have a target somewhere in between, then it's probably about 700 or halfway. Laser rangefinders, we already talked about that. Maps are another great tool. Unfortunately, there's not great access to maps in everyone's hands. As a topography map, laminated, that we have a protractor to use like we do in the military. However, there are a load of apps nowadays that allow you to do this. OnX Hunting, loads of hunting and fishing apps and a bunch of other stuff, but you can use maps to really do this. Even Google Maps has a measuring tool. And if you get in there and you know how to change the settings from meters to yards or feet or something like that, it can be a great tool. But typically that relies on you having updated imagery and in an area with service, unless you know where you're going and you can download that map chip before you get out there. So if you're hunting out west, recommend you find out where you're going, get on OnX, getting some privileges, paying for it or whatever, and downloading that map so you can use it offline. And then we got the mill relation formula, also the MOA formula. Some people will say you can't do range estimation with a MOA reticle, and they're absolutely wrong, and I'm gonna show you how to do that here in a minute. But you can use the reticle in your scope, if you have mill or MOA scope, just like a tape measure to determine how far a target is if you know the size of your target.